Well, welcome to the both of you. Thank you for agreeing to come and speak with myself. Just to give you a little bit of context, we're Mega Visions. We're a sort of neo-retro magazine. We started off with a bit of a focus on Sega, and of course, we've expanded out to focus on a wide variety of gaming topics. But being that we have/had that focus on Sega, inevitably a certain blue rodent does come up quite frequently.
Sure.
In the articles that we do. And that actually drives a fair bit of our site traffic. So we think our readers will be very excited to have a little bit of content from you guys, especially as most of our readers will probably know you from your work writing for the Sonic Boom TV show, which I happen to consider one of the finest bits of animated entertainment to have come out of the last decade or so. So,
wait, are you saying Sonic related entertainment or all entertainment?
Well, I mean, it sort of depends where you place the bar, doesn't it? But, you know, in terms of animated, and I put this in air quotes, kids comedy, it's quality stuff.
So I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. So obviously, as I've said, most of our readers will know you from Sonic Boom. But before we get into that, we do like to just spotlight individuals in our mag and on our site, just to sort of get an idea of who we're talking to here. So sort of set the stage for us. How did you both, you can either go together or you can do it individually, it's up to you. How did you get into writing for the screen? Do you have like a favorite project that you've worked on? And can you share like an interesting factoid about your career that you wouldn't be able to find just by searching you on Wikipedia? Something like exclusive that you wouldn't be able to find by Googling you.
Something exclusive that we don't that we haven't been keeping under wraps on purpose.
Precisely. Just set the stage for us. Give our listeners an idea of who you are and what it is you do, and then we can go from there.
Sure. So Greg and I are an animation writing team. We've been before that we were regular old-fashioned friends. We grew up together in New Jersey, in a town it's called Marlboro, New Jersey. Went to high school together, played Little League together, all of that good stuff. And geez, I think I moved to LA probably about 2 years before you did, Greg.
Yeah, roughly that. Sure. Yeah. And then I moved out here a couple of years after Alan, and you know, we were both kind of thinking we want to be writers. We want to be writers in the comedy space, but we were both doing it separately, despite having the same goals, living in the same building at the time. And we were actually both working on separate Curb Your Enthusiasm spec scripts when we realized, oh, this is silly. Because Alan had this like A plot that he was like really digging. And I was working on, I was working on a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. My A plot wasn't quite working. My B plot, I was like, it was fire. We knew it was good stuff. We knew it was good stuff. And Alan and I just looked at each other and went, well, why don't we combine these and maybe start working together on stuff? And that's how that happened.
Yeah. So, and so Greg and I, we were writing just, spec scripts, sample scripts to keep ourselves busy. And right around that same time, our friend Bill Freiberger happened to get hired on Sonic Boom, who I had worked with Bill before on an MTV show called War on the Ape. I was the intern. But when Bill got hired, he was like, yeah, send me a sample. So we sent him the stuff that we were working on together because that was our strongest stuff. And it just sort of like happened and it started rolling. And then we were a professional writing team. And we kind of like got right into it. And so that was Sonic Boom season 1. Which Greg and I started, like our first assignment was just like rewrite one of the early scripts. It was a circus episode. It was just like
Circus of Plunders, I believe, was our first episode that we worked on at all. And yeah, it was someone else's script, and we kind of had to punch it up a little bit. That was our first testing the waters on our work there, and we did a good enough job that as we started pitching episodes ourselves. And eventually we kind of rolled into being the go-to guys, and we became, for season 1, our title was creative consultant. And that kind of meant we took a look at a lot of the scripts and had our hand kind of fixing them all up a little bit just to make sure that the voice was consistent throughout the series.
Yeah, at the time, season 1 of Sonic Boom had no staff. It was just Bill and a bunch of freelance writers. So like we were like sort of backwards put into staff on that as being the creative consultants. Which then like led into us actually being staff on season 2. We were the story editors of the show. But I don't want to forget you asked for something that people wouldn't know about us.
Yes, as well as a favorite project of yours that isn't Sonic Boom, because trust me when I tell you, most of the questions I've prepared are Sonic related. So I want to just give some time to
all right. I'll throw out a favorite project of ours. It's currently on Netflix in the United States. I'm not sure if you guys get it over there, but Transformers Bots is a show we worked on relatively recently that just dropped on Netflix maybe about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And it's exceptionally funny, like the first comedy version of Transformers. It's really where Alan and I should be working if we're working on a Transformers project. It's like the right one for us. Just a super funny show, and we had a blast working on it.
Yeah,
fantastic. It's sort of something that lends itself quite well to comedy. I mean, because it's never really been pursued under that angle before. It's always sort of been a gritty Michael Bay-esque action.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? There are things that look like other things, but they've never really used the in disguise part of robots in disguise. Anyway,
sure.
Something you don't know about us. I can give you one about
prepared
me.
To share, obviously.
Yeah, you go ahead, Alan.
I own a house in Missouri that is in the middle of America, in like farmland in the middle of America, that my wife and I bought on vacation once because it was like super cheap, and now it's a money pit that just every so often I get an email from a property manager telling me that like my roof is all messed up, and then it was a terrible decision. I don't recommend.
That's the first time Alan has said that explicitly in my presence, at least. So I get a kick out of it. But I'm sorry, Alan.
We're getting some new stuff then. All getting some new material.
Yeah,
I'm sort of like half terrified that some of our listeners are now going to use that information to try and like cross-reference and geolocate. Again, Missouri farmland. We've got to narrow it down, look for flight patterns, try and figure out where this.
You're going to find my empty house that I rent out? I don't. What are they going to do with that?
I love Alan's advice of like, don't invest in property. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm still not sure if I buy it. But something you don't know about me. Well, I guess you guys don't know. I'm a toy collector, unless you follow me on Instagram, I guess. I collect, kind of retro vintage toys from the 80s and 90s. That's my bag.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they were great decades. So if you're going to devote yourself to collecting from a decade, it might as well be them.
What's
so.
Your latest set? Like, because Greg kind of gets on kicks where he wants to get the complete set.
Yeah. I like to get the complete set. But I also kind of like to get like little samples of things. I guess most recently I collected, not terribly recently, but within the past few months, I collected all 4 of the original Snailians figures. They're not terribly hard to come by, and I don't really work on accessories and like having to get all of the details. In fact, Alan, I think you're very wrong. I don't collect full sets generally, but yeah,
I got all the Battle Beasts. That felt like something.
Well, I do have all the Battle Beasts. That was a must do.
Feel free to delete all of this from your podcast.
Whatever you guys think is valuable.
That's fine. It paints a picture. Gives a little bit of framework to the whole thing. But thanks, guys.
Sure.
So obviously, elephant in the room, the Technicolor elephant in the room, if it was in the universe of the show. You guys obviously worked on Sonic Boom, which you mentioned. And the next question I was going to ask you've already addressed, which was how you came to be on the Sonic Boom project. So at the time you were brought on, What was like the sort of attitude towards the project at the time? Because it was intended to be like a new cornerstone of the Sonic IP. There was supposed to be a show, there were games, there were comics. I think I might have even seen a proposal for like a Sonic Boom themed mall, where there was like a section with all the toys and like an interactive, the wrist communicators that they have. The kids were going to like wear those. And, yeah,
that'd be a pretty small section as far as I could tell. But I'm sorry, what was the question?
No. So the question was, so like obviously it was like a big deal according to the company at the time. There was a lot riding on it. So like, how much did you like know about the nature of it? That it was sort of like, did you like know it was supposed to be like a full-on reboot? Did you have any like prior familiarity with the Sonic franchise? Like,
oh my gosh,
basically, like, how did it feel at the start? Give us a sense of that.
Sure. Well, I mean, I will say we obviously knew of the Sonic franchise. We grew up with the Sega Genesis, playing those original four, Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles, I think were all our go-to games. Alan, you might have dabbled in the Bean Machine a little bit.
I don't like the way you said that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we had we were very knowledgeable about Sonic going into it. And as far as like what Boom was, we came in, it had already been in development. It was already, the game was going, the show was kind of figured out a little bit before we got there. So we knew that the plan was, this is a little veer off to the left of the Sonic universe and kind of like a spinoff, really.
I feel like it was kind of positioned as like Sega of America's Sonic project, where, this will be like, for the American audience and everything, and it'll be the offshoot. I remember they were saying it was like a 3-pronged brand with the game, the show, and the merch. I remember seeing charts and stuff. They gave us like
an order of quality.
The show would have been top, but I do remember that distinctly, that it was like this whole massive like Sonic rethink for a Western audience, basically.
Fantastic. So obviously it was a sort of like a sense within the company that Sonic needed that kind of like jolt to his image, because at the time he was coming off a series of fairly popular titles, because obviously he'd sort of meandered a bit in the mid 2000s with ones that people weren't overly keen on, and then he came back with I don't know how much familiarity you have with like the modern Sonic games, but obviously like the colors and generations, those are really well received. So a lot of people have sort of questioned why then? Why did they suddenly decide to give Sonic this firecracker up the backside at like the precise moment that he didn't really seem to need it?
I'm not sure. I mean, that we weren't really privy to that kind of stuff, because that was, I mean, to be honest, we didn't have a ton of direct contact with Sega. If anything, we were dealing with Sega of America, and even that was through, Bill, who's our showrunner, and Evan Bailey, who was the producer. Like we were the guys like focused on the show for the most part, aside from those couple of days where we came in and helped try to punch up the script for Fire and Ice.
Yeah. Of course, that being the sequel to the 3DS one, correct?
Oh no, actually no. We punched up the script to
Rise of Lyric.
And Fire and Ice.
Did you?
Yes,
yeah.
and then
Fire and Ice. That's amazing. I wouldn't have thought that, because a lot of the jokes in that game were like really terrible.
We probably wrote them.
Yeah, we might have written them, but also it was like a 3-day sprint where like the game was basically done, except not really because of several other issues. But we were brought in, and
the levels were set, and and all the game mechanics were set, and it was like rewriting scenes and story within the cutscenes and everything to try and make the show match the game a little more.
That's intriguing then, because Rise of Lyric has always sort of had a bit of a feeling that so like was the writing done, what you're saying is the writing, or some of the writing was done after the stages were in the can, the general like level layout was in the can, like the overall So you were still writing the script when the game was almost out the door?
Well, kind of. There was a script already. We didn't write it. We kind of just came in and like tried to like, punch up some lines, and like, you know, it all had to fit in the same order, in the same, you know, like whatever characters were in the scene, those characters were in the scene. We didn't get a lot of control over the direction of the story. It was really just about like, can we add a joke here? Can we add a joke here? And then like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think like it was like the record session was set for that Monday, and it was always going to be that Monday, and we like kind of got in like a week before that, where they were like, give the script a punch up or something before the record, and we just like worked all day for 3 days or something, just going through that, trying to make it match the voice a little better. So I don't want to say like, oh God, they were still working on the script. I think that was like the time when the script was getting locked. We just came in very late.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because there was like a pervasive sort of sense of down to the wire about the whole Rise of Lyric project, and obviously that didn't have anything to do with you guys.
No, it didn't have to do with us. I don't know that it had to do with Big Red Button either, because they just weren't privy to everything, it seemed. And that was kind of the big problem, because the game, like for all intents and purposes, should have been really good, but there were problems.
It could have been, because it had the Ratchet and Clank devs on it, and the concept art was fantastic, and the original trailer, which was set to Skrillex for some reason.
Yeah, I remember that.
Like the graphics in that were like 10 times better than what we got, so presumably that was running on like a PS4, and then the game we got was.
I think everything in 2013 and 14 was set to Skrillex. So yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, but like I remember when we went to Big Red Button's offices to like work on it, and they were showing us like the game in progress, and it like I'm not blowing smoke, it looked cool. Like what they were showing us looked cool, and we were like, oh, this is gonna be sweet, this is gonna be a great game. But it just sort of like got down-resed and didn't quite really get finished and everything. It was a huge bummer.
Yeah,
it's such a shame, and there is like a fan community who's trying to kind of like resurrect it for the PC by sort of going in and upscaling some of the bits and pieces and just trying to cobble it slightly closer to. I don't know if there's been any movement on that. The last time I saw was like a year ago that there was progress on that.
I haven't heard that, but that's cool.
Yeah. So I suppose we'll see where that goes. So that kind of actually leads into the next thing I wanted to talk about. So Rise of Lyric, obviously for the Wii U, was supposed to be a prequel to the show, and a lot of people have said, fans have said, that it doesn't really feel like it leads into the show very well, because the game sort of tells this epic, attempted epic story of, you know, crossing across different worlds and gathering the crystals and stopping Lyric, who's like this evil warmongering snake in a robot suit, and he doesn't appear in the show. I mean, obviously we defeat him at the end, but he doesn't appear. A lot of the elements from the game don't appear in the show. Like they have a sidekick called Cliff in the game who does not appear in the show, even though he's implied to sort of be a close friend. So like, how much of a back and forth did you have with Big Red Button, the developers of the game, if any? And how do you? No, not a thing.
No, not really. I mean, like we said, we were working on the show and they were working on the game concurrently, and we didn't talk to each other until we came in those couple days to work on Rise of Lyric. That was when we were introduced to Lyric and Cliff and any of the other characters. Like they were kind of being produced separately, and so
you know, I think it was like the show was decided early on, like I think even before they hired Bill, that this was going to be like a sitcom. This was going to be just a pure comedy show, and the game just that was not the decision that they made for the game. And like they kind of like didn't even really fit together tonally. So I'm not even sure like what what we would have gotten out of like syncing up with a big red button earlier. I guess we could have. We really wanted somebody to introduce Styx. I remember that was something where we were like, "There's no origin episode for Styx." I was terrified that when Styx debuted, all the fans were just going to go, "Who the hell is that?" Which didn't happen. They mostly just were like, "All right, yeah, she's here."
Yeah, she just sort of appears, and even in the game, she just kind of shows up in the hub world, and she talks to Team Sonic as if she's always known them. It's a bit bizarre. But like, did you have a backstory for Styx in your head when you can you reveal it?
Gosh, we pitched something, but it's not official because it was just
obviously
something
that
wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah. What did we pitch? Do you remember what we pitched? I have no idea.
I'd have to go into my files.
Yeah.
I feel like it like some elements of the Bigfoot episode might have come out of that, where there was like a creature in the wilderness and everything that people thought was like a monster and everything, and then it turned out to be her.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. And then we did that one episode that the original name of the town that she was involved in, that wasn't it? Like her ancestor or something.
Oh yes. Because of course it was just called Unnamed Village for
Unnamed Village. Yeah. I don't remember what we did in that episode.
It's funny because the game called the island, I think it was it Wayback Island or something. Hang on, I'm gonna have to
Seaside Island, something like that.
Bygone Island.
Bygone. See.
Which doesn't square, and it's so strange because like in that hub in the game, it's clearly supposed to be the place from the show, the island from the show, because you can visit Mayor Burger even though Dave isn't there. You can like some of the show characters are there, like Percy is there, so clearly there was like some back and forth. So it's just a bit of, it's intriguing that you say you only were brought on at the very, very end.
Well, I will say for Medburger, it was the show needed that kind of location. We wanted it to be a fast food joint, and then so it retroactively was whatever the tiki themed thing kind of existed on in the game in some aspect already. So they kind of were like, that's going to be the burger joint, because I don't think like Medburger's not in the game explicitly, certainly not by name, I don't think.
No, it's just kind of, it's just like a collection of tables and chairs next to the tiki stall that we would come to recognize as Mehrburger.
Yeah, so that like that was ported into becoming Mehrburger.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, there you go. That answers a mystery that I'd had in my head for a long time. Like I always thought there must have been some connection. So like, what elements of the game, even despite the fact you weren't brought on until the very end, there were some elements from the game that did survive the transition to the show, like Tails' plane from the game makes a brief appearance in episode 1 before being replaced with a traditional tornado. It's on screen for about 2 minutes and then gets shot out of the sky, and we never see it again.
I feel like we explicitly, I feel like his plane isn't the tornado in the show. I think it's still a whole other plane.
Is it? I don't know why I had it in my head that they referred to it as that. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it was or something.
We always called it Tails' plane. I think because it was like, this isn't the tornado. This is a different piece of merch.
I just always found it hilarious because in the game they sort of make a big fanfare about revealing this plane. It's like this ancient plane that Cliff like digs up from this decades-old excavation site, and like Tails flies in for a heroic moment near the end of the game, and then it just gets blasted from the sky in the first episode of the show, and then we never see it again.
Maybe
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I don't think I was entirely aware there were two planes, and if there were, I kind of believe you. So I mean, you might be right. I don't know. I don't want to look this up. The wiki will know.
The blue,
wiki
yes,
knows everything.
So wait,
and
what
then,
was your question? I'm sorry.
I was just kind of like more observing that there were some game elements like the Ena beam made it across. That might have been like an early thing.
Yeah, that was in a couple of episodes.
We tried to use it when we could. We threw it in there a few times.
Like a sort of a wink, wink, nudge kind of thing. So that sort of covers the connection to the game that we want to talk about. So let's try and get away from the poor legacy of Rise of Lyric and focus on the actual show now, the part that people always agree. So early on, the show, it found quite a fair amount of rating success, didn't it? It had like upwards of 1.5 million viewers for some early episodes. But then it was sort of moved to bizarre time slots, and it was advertised very sporadically, like it was dumped at 6 a.m. There were no adverts for it. It was moved to Boomerang and then back to Cartoon Network and then back to Boomerang again, all without any indication that it was going to happen. Do you know what was going on with that? Like, lots of fans believe that it was sort of like not treated especially well by the network. I mean, obviously you guys just wrote, but what's your take on all that?
My take is that if you look at Cartoon Network's history, Teen Titans Go accepting, they in general push their originals and their acquired shows. They don't really push as much, because the acquired shows, they're paying for them, but they're not as invested in their success. So a lot of those like Saturday, Sunday morning early time slots was all outside produced shows that they were just sort of dumping to, I think, fulfill contractual obligations, basically. And so that's the impression that I got for why Boom was kind of tossed around on the schedule. God, it was like 6 a.m., wasn't it?
I feel like it started at 7 a.m. and then it got pushed to 6 a.m. and then it got pushed to like 6 p.m. on Boomerang on a Saturday, and it's like, which is even worse. It bounced all over the place. Cartoon Network, I don't think they just particularly cared to promote it. I didn't frankly expect them to. So I was a little disappointed that there wasn't more promotion, but I also would have liked to see more promotion on the Sega side, because they kind of didn't advertise the show was on weekly, and they had a hot Twitter channel just blowing up with memes. It was concurrent with our show where they were like really leaning hard into the comedy and the meme culture. And I just thought it couldn't hurt to every week be like, this is the new episode of Sonic Boom airing. And they didn't do that. So, a lot of people like to blame Cartoon Network, but I didn't see Sega like trying as hard as I thought they could have.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, those kinds of decisions were above your heads, I imagine. So
of course, all of that's outside of our realm of expertise.
I mean, ultimately, Greg and I are two guys who were hired on the show. Like Bill Freiberger was showrunner of the show, and he was the one in charge of all creative. We just sort of served at Bill's pleasure, trying to help him bring his vision of the show in and bring our sensibility to it. So a lot of times we get questions about like, why this, or what was the logic of Sega's, powers that be. And it's like, we weren't even in those negotiations. We kind of received instructions and creative direction, and we would just try and hit those benchmarks as best we could.
Yeah,
of course. I mean, what else could they expect from you? Of course, paradoxically, Cartoon Network signed off on a season 2, so that must have been quite positive news when.
Well, like you mentioned, like the first season, it did pretty well in the ratings, despite being on early in the morning. Like 1.5 or 1.8 or however many million people were watching a show that started at 7 a.m. That's a pretty good number. So
and this show, like this was a French co-production show. Are you aware of that?
It was Weedo Productions, wasn't it?
Yes. So it was like the channel, I think Gulli in France was also like the major partner, Cartoon Network in America and Gulli in France. So it was like, as long as, and I think it was doing like pretty well on the French channel. And I think they were really into it. So I think that was a big reason also why it got renewed, was like the French side and the French production company were ready to do more episodes and everything. And so that kind of helped nudge it into that second season stratosphere.
Yeah, it wasn't relying entirely on Cartoon Network money. So the fact that like there was a budget that it was already kind of partially filled, I think, is what gave it the edge.
And of course, all the fans who had grown to love its take on the Sonic universe were also very happy that it got a season 2. And there was quite a bit. Yeah, of course. I especially was very happy because I really dug season 1. Even like some of the early episodes where it's kind of like finding its footing, there was sort of more of an emphasis on action. And that actually segues quite nicely into the next question. So at the start, even though it was positioned as a comedy, there was more of an adherence to sort of like the traditional Sonic elements. Like the first couple of episodes are really action orientated. There's like the animation budget for the first like few episodes is like really, really impressive. You've got some like sweeping shots of the jungle and like a Sonic Riders-esque hoverbike chase, I think, in the first episode. But then as the show went on, there was sort of less of a focus on that kind of action style thing. And it sort of morphed into, as you say, sort of like a dry, I don't want to draw comparisons to Family Guy and The Simpsons, but obviously Bill Fry does have a history in that regard, I seem to recall. So what do you think like brought about this gradual shift in tone? Like were Sega particularly hands-on? Were they like, you have to do the Sonic formula, and then they were like slowly more hands-off so you could get away from that sort of mandatory action and focus on the comedy? Like what was the deal with all
that? I don't think it was as gradual as you're saying. I think also Bill didn't come on from episode 1. He came on like after episode 1 was produced or almost finished, and then took over the first few like 5 or 6 scripts that were already sort of written.
Because I would say episode 2 was the one where Eggman like crashes at Sonic's place for the week. Yeah, which I feel like is pretty much right into the tone that the show got.
When we jumped on the show, I remember, Bill showed us the scripts for the first couple episodes, and Tails is the first episode. What's it called?
The Sidekick.
The Sidekick episode was great, but when we saw the one about Eggman staying on Sonic's couch, we're like, this is the real pilot. This is the real like tone of the series. And so everything else was kind of trying to be more like that than the episode about Tails' plane.
Yeah, I feel like it was sort of like our goal to, in every episode, there was supposed to be one big action set piece, at least one action set piece. And then it was like, as long as that was in there, we could, fill it with as much stupid, silly comedy as we wanted. And I think those action set pieces got more and more perfunctory as the show went on, because it's just like, okay, so we open on a battle, and it's just like, get that out of the way, and then now it's a bunch of stupid stuff.
Yeah, because especially in season 2, it sort of like devolves into, we'll have a comedy scene, and then Eggman, who otherwise does not appear in the episode, shows up, says, "Robots attack!" And then they all sort of like anemically swing their fists around a bit, and then Eggman departs, and then it's right back to comedy of the week. There was definitely that sense of
but we also in season 2 we also got to do like that four-parter Robots from the Sky, and that one you can tell they upped the budget on the animation a bit, and the animation quality definitely like varies episode to episode.
Yes,
you can see it sometimes. There's more of a budget, and sometimes an episode is rushed. I mean, it's all production things that are really like, I don't know exactly what happened, but some episodes you can tell they like put in the extra effort, and I'm glad they did that for that 4-parter, because that was kind of the most epic arc, the only like 4-episode arc we even did. So
That was great. The whole robots from the sky saga, it was great. Although, as you mentioned, the sort of variation in the animation quality was very noticeable. Like in a couple of episodes, the textures would be a little bit funny. But I think it did pay off, especially the finale to season 2 is really great. That basically brings back every major character and has Shadow come back and do his shtick of, oh, Sonic, I don't really care for you very much, and threatens to end the universe, and seems perfectly okay with it.
Writing for Shadow was its own challenge. Because Sega just did not consider Shadow a comedy character. They were like, Shadow's on the show, but he's not a comedy character. Shadow's not gonna be making jokes. And we're like, sure. And so then the joke just became that Shadow is like
humorless.
Yes, so humorless and so edgy all the time that just sort of like, it's funny that he's in here and has to deal with these people. But oh my God, it was
he was also a character that was more protected, I think, by Sega. They didn't I don't know, they were reluctant to even let us use him too much. And then when we did use him, there were so many notes that it was easier to not use him, which is why he wasn't on the show as often as you'd want him to be.
I was going to say, is that why he was sort of relegated to a once in a blue moon special episode character? Like Metal Sonic was kind of the same. He showed up once or twice, and I always thought to myself, why don't they use him more? He's just a robot. He doesn't talk.
Metal Sonic was just in the one episode, or was he in the soccer episode too?
He was in the one where Sonic, I'm racking my brain now, it's been a while. He was in the one where Sonic is accused of doing something or other, and then spends the rest of the episode masquerading as a construction worker, and then he tosses, there's a running gag where he tosses something out of the frame and hits a guy on the head, and he's wearing shades, and then Metal Sonic turns out to be the perpetrator, and then he was also in the season 2 finale.
We brought it back for the finale. But honestly, when characters that were original universe Sonic characters were asked to be brought in, those episodes were just harder to write because there was just so many more notes, and those characters were so much more protected, and that's a good thing, because you want to stay true to the characters, but we got to have so much more freedom with using Dave the Intern and the Mayor and all the characters that were in the Boom universe, that it was just easier to did we want to include a Big the Cat? Sure, but if we pitched that, it would have been a giant headache, and we would have had to get clearance, and it probably would have taken longer to get approved. And there's a reason that there's only Shadow and Metal, and I think Vector and Vector in one episode.
It truly, it was we were, and this was by Bill's design, we were trying to be our own little island off in Sega, to get as few approvals as we needed, as few ask permission for as few instances as we could. So it was just play around in the sandbox of original characters, original locations, and don't go into lore, don't go into backstory and everything, and just try and keep it all here, because then we can mess around in this sandbox as much as we want.
So that was very much a conscious choice, because even when there are sort of lore revelations, they don't even stick a lot of the time. I think the renaming of the village certainly did. But then one of the things I love most about the show is just how many different biomes are on this one island. So you got a jungle, and then a stone's throw away is a snowy mountain with a temple on it, and then you've got the beach, and then in the sky you've got a robot city. So was it the case that keeping everything contained, as you said, quite literally on this island, meant you could be more creative? So that was a conscious choice.
I guess. I mean, it wasn't even we were very specifically told this wasn't Mobius. This was its own its own not Earth planet that we were on. Like, I don't know. I do not know how they got there or what it was.
No.
So I don't know. I don't know if like specifically it was like, oh, we're gonna keep it all local to this island because, oh, there goes my dog, because we had the whole planet. But it was just sort of like, you know, more limitations on like what environments we could build, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there were budgetary things too, where we're like, you know, make that. That's why there's so many scenes in any number of places. Medburger became the central location because it was I mean, it was a good hangout spot, but also it was like cheaper to just keep using the same spots over and over again. That's how animation works. And, you know, that's also how we ended up finding as many characters as we found. We would introduce a character kind of like on The Simpsons, where it would be this one note, you know, character who was just there for one funny line.
Yeah.
And then that was a character that we now had to work with. That was one of the designs that existed in our world. And so we found personality traits for like a lot of background villagers that way.
Yeah, like Soar the Eagle is a good example. He was introduced as a motivational speaker. And we liked, you know, Travis Willingham did this kind of particular voice for him and everything. And then later when we needed a news anchor, we're like, well, I think it's just that guy. That guy's also the news anchor now. And just like doing that all the time with all the characters.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that you brought up Travis Willingham, the voice actors. Was there ever any consideration of using the non-game cast for the show? Because I mean, obviously, they're all legends in their own right. I mean, Mike Pollock has been doing Eggman since 2003. Roger as Sonic, obviously.
When we signed on, the game cast was already attached, but I'm pretty sure that was the decision from the start, because this whole branch was going to be game show together. Like, it was always envisioned as game and show together. So I think that was like the plan from the start.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Do you have like a particular anecdote or story to tell about the recording process? Like, is there like a gag that one of them ad-libbed that people are particularly fond of that wasn't in the script?
So, well, Greg and I we attended like every recording session.
Which is actually unusual. And we were very privileged to be able to do it, that Bill would like let us in there, and we kind of got to have a say and help, you know, be an extra voice in the back of the director's head, telling them to kind of punch it up this way, or, you know, we would tweak a line here or there. That was a really cool experience, honestly.
I think my favorite anecdote. So Roger Craig Smith is like a machine. So in one of our Shadow episodes, in that last Shadow episode, there's a sequence where Eggman records an interview with Sonic, and Sonic says a bunch of random stuff, and then he poorly splices it together and shows it to Shadow, if you recall that gag. And so it was in the script, like, you'll record this question and answer as Sonic, and then we'll just kind of cut the clips together poorly. And Roger said, like, well, I can just like, do you want me to just give you the poorly clipped together version now? And we're like, sure. And so he laid down in vocals exactly how it comes out on the show, where he's just like, Shadow, he is weak. That windbag could never. And he just like does it. It sounds like exactly
I never would have guessed.
Yeah. And we're like, well, that just saved us a bunch of time. Thanks, dude.
That's fantastic.
The cast was so talented, and we got to have them all in the same room except Mike, who called in from New York. But all of them playing off of each other. Like, a lot of shows nowadays don't get that. People are either calling in, sending in their records from home. Everyone's recording separately. And on Sonic Boom, we got to have the whole cast standing next to each other, listening to each other in their headphones, literally playing directly off each other. And I think that's why the chemistry of those characters like comes off.
So every record session had the whole cast together, you know, Mike on Skype, and then everybody else in the room. And we would just start at page 1 and just read the whole script straight through. and it was just like a play performance. And they would stop every couple of lines, and the director would kind of get new takes, but we'd just like go straight through, and we'd just finish the script, and then we'd go through again and do the grunts, vocalizations, and extra sound effects, and then that was it. And then we'd move on to the next script.
Did either of you guys ever voice any incidental characters? Because I know Bill Freiberger, he was comedy chimp, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Yes,
and
he
Lady
was.
Walrus. Greg did.
I did, yes. I play the bike chain bandit in which episode is that? Planes, Trains, and Dude Mobiles.
Oh, the violent murderer character who hops on the back of the van. Yes.
Yes. I don't know. We write those scripts, and every time Alan and I write, we read all the lines over and over again out loud to kind of make sure that it's clicking, make sure it's funny. And I'm constantly doing different voices and playing all the different characters. And so Bike Chain Bandit, I was doing this really gravelly. What was even my one line that I can't
biding my time.
Biding my time. Yeah, I was doing that, and Alan was like, "That's super funny." And Alan said to Bill, like, "Hey, you should have Greg do that line," and Bill graciously allowed it. So, it was great. It was really exciting to be able to do that. I wish I could have done more. I would love to do more in the future, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think I think there was like one day where half the cast was like sick or something, and I did some crowd vocalizations or something that got mixed in. So I'm in there maybe a little bit, but really Greg is the voice actor of this duo.
And that duology that the road trip episode is in, the not Duditude, the Dreamboat Express duology. Probably
Duditude is also the Dreamboat Express becomes Duditude.
Of course. But it's probably one of my favorite bits of material in the show. Just sort of like the send up of the entire music industry is great. Do you guys have a favorite gag or episode or particular moment from the show? Doesn't have to be one that you wrote or contributed to. And if you can tell us about the process of how it came to be, that would also be great.
So I've always been really proud of the dip into live action that happens in one of our episodes. In the Just a Guy episode, there's where Sonic is being annoyed by another villager, and he's taught to go into his happy place when he gets frustrated. He go into my happy place, and then you go into his imagination, and he's like on a beach, and there's tiki music, and then that guy shows up, and Sonic inside his happy place is like, just go to your happy place, and then he goes to a second happy place, which is this blank void. So it's an Inception joke. At which point, then when his alarm goes off, he dips out of that second happy place back into his first, then dips out of the first into reality, and then dips out of that into a live action shot of a man in a very poorly fitting Sonic costume taking out his garbage. And that guy just goes, whoops, one too many, and then it goes back to the show. I always loved that gag because of the arguments and approvals that it took was like mind-boggling. I remember
just to have a little shot of a guy holding a trash bag.
I mean, the implications.
I suppose.
Does that mean all of the Sonic Boom universe, or all of the Sonic universe, exists actually just in the head of this weird cosplayer? There was genuine concern that that's what we were doing by making this joke. I don't think that's true.
It that way.
Well, now you should.
It
is true. It's officially canon.
It's like a kind of Lego movie style pullback, at the end of that movie where they reveal it's all in Will Ferrell and the kids' heads. I don't think I can ever look at that the same way now.
So that was like, I remember for months we were just talking to Bill, like, is that live action shot still in there? And he's like, it's still in the budget. We haven't done it yet. And like they didn't film it until like after the whole season was wrapped and everything. And it was just this white whale that I kept muttering to Greg, like, they're never going to do it. They're just going to cut it. And then they actually did it. I was so relieved and surprised.
Yeah, if I had to, I don't know that I have a particular gag to talk about, but I will say that something I was really excited about was we did the Planes, Trains, and Dudemobiles episode, and then also the Sticks and Amy's Excellent Staycation episode, and both those episodes kind of occur concurrently, and that was like, those were two different pitches. That also, that was an idea of ours where we were like, can we do an episode that's kind of a road trip? That would be a lot of fun. And also we like wanted to make sure that there was a female villain in the series. And so we had pitched early on in season 2 that Charlie's wife, Belinda, like become a villain all on her own. And then it just kind of took a little while, but eventually we figured out like, maybe we could do an episode where the guys go on the road trip and the girls are dealing with a new villain, and then have them very loosely interconnected and overlapping with each other. And the fact that we got to do something kind of fun and experimental like that was really cool.
Yeah. Because the approval for that took so long, though, that female villain that we wanted to introduce at the start of season 2 didn't get introduced until like one of the last like 10 episodes of season 2 or something.
Yeah,
so that was a bummer. And then we're like, well, we'll have her for season 3 though.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a shame. So obviously you talked a little bit about the freedom that you might have, or maybe lack thereof, that you might have had in terms of using other game characters. Was there ever like much of a conversation about them? Were you ever like, because obviously Vector was brought in, and that always seemed like such an oddly specific choice to me. Like, he's like part of a trio, so like if you're going to have him, why not have the others? Or like, why not bring in a character that frankly would be a bit more popular, who could like stand on their own? Perhaps I was like wondered what the process of why Vector was the one that.
I mean, did they tell us why? I mean, we were told, hey, we want to use Vector, and we went, okay, cool, let's find a way to use him. I wish it was more interesting than that, but I don't think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, like all of that stuff, all the ones that like Shadow, Metal, and Vector, we didn't ask for them. Like, Greg mentioned Big the Cat. We never asked for Big the Cat either. That was all like outside of our payroll. Like, and also if we asked for characters, they would just say no. Do you have any idea how difficult it is? So we would just sort of like get these directives from Sega of like, okay, we want to feature this character in at least one episode of Sonic Boom this year. And go, all right, we'll figure it out. And that's why Defect from the video game from Fire and Ice, is in it and all. Like pretty much anytime an outside character from outside the show universe comes in, it's because Sega told us they wanted an event episode to feature that character.
Oh, well, that's really interesting. I didn't know that was the way it was. Well, I mean, to me it is. I guess we'll see based on the angriness of the comment. This is not sufficient. So you kind of sort of briefly mentioned season 3. Was there ever kind of like an assumption that you would get a season 3? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you were crossing all of your fingers and appendages and hoping that you would, but there was sort of also a sense, at least I got this feeling as a viewer, that as season 2 was kind of drawing to an end, there was kind of like a sense of finality about it. Like the animation wasn't quite as good. It was in like an odd time slot. The marketing had like dried up. Like, how early did you know that was going to be the end?
I mean, we wrote season 2 far before production finished producing the episode. Like as far as the quality of the animation, that was something we weren't even aware of. If you thought there was a dip in quality, it wasn't something we even saw. We didn't know if that was even a factor at all, but I don't think anybody knew for sure. I think we just kind of assumed that's probably it. If there's another season, great. But I think that's why Bill and we spitefully wrote in a like, see you next season at the end of season 2, just to kind of hope for it and get people a little angry if it didn't happen? I don't know. Why did we do that?
No, we didn't.
We didn't know.
I think Greg, or at least I thought, like, this is, if it comes back, like Bill seemed ready to move on, and I just felt like this is probably the end. I felt strongly that it was probably the end while we were doing it. I wasn't surprised when they sent us the email officially canceling it, whatever, like 2 years later, when this this
really,
email.
because I remember there was like it was like up in the air for a while. I remember everyone was thinking, will there be a season 3? Will there be a season 3? And
I mean,
the longer that you don't hear word about it, the less likely that it's happening.
Yeah, it's the way of the business, isn't it?
Yeah.
We definitely got the like wish you best in your future endeavors email, and the awkward thing was, though, that Sega didn't announce that there wasn't going to be a season 3, and so we had to just like give clues while not making news. And people would ask us, you go like, I would look at Sega's enthusiasm on the project and make your own assumption on if there will be a season 3. We had to like talk around it so much.
Yeah, people kept asking us, and the answer was no, there's no season 3, but we weren't allowed to say it for a really long time. Yeah.
I think by the time the news officially broke, it was kind of like, oh, what else is new?
Right, exactly.
So I know it's kind of like an open-ended question, but do you see any form of future for the Sonic Boom brand? Do you think they might ever return to it, or do you think it's just something that they want to kind of leave dormant? Do you think it's been poisoned too much by the?
I think a lot of the reason that they shy away from it and they kind of shun the brand all on its own is the fact that anytime it does come up, there's the little caveat that like, man, that show was great, but the game was not. And it just feels like it's impossible to mention Sonic Boom with like, I haven't read a single article about Sonic Boom that didn't have that little extra jab in there. And I think Sega just wants to avoid that. But that said, 15 years from now, who knows if Sega's going to want to be like, hey, remember Boom Sonic's back, and there'll be an audience who loves this brand because of the show. And if anything can happen, everything gets rebooted.
Yeah, reboot of an attempted reboot.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if I'm doing a Sonic multiverse project, Boom is like pretty far down the list, because you have modern, classic, now Ben Schwartz Sonic, and like it'd be nice to throw Boom in there, but I feel like they're gonna probably just move on.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they can keep like Styx around, or I would prefer Dave the Intern, but doesn't seem to happen.
I was thinking it would be really nice if they incorporated Styx in some way, because she's one of the best things to come out of the whole thing. That sort of manic energy isn't really seen in a lot of the other Sonic characters. So
yeah, she's like showed up in some of the comics and stuff. Like, she's not totally gone, but and wasn't she in like one of the Olympics games or something? Am I making that up? I thought she was in
I think she was in the Brazilian one, which came out while the show was still on the air, so it might have been like a cross promotion thing.
Okay.
But she was in one, which is more than some of the other characters can say, so it's a good start. So just for my own sort of personal curiosity, it's not a question on the list. You mentioned that you wrote season 2 long before there was any sense of the animation and what might be happening with a prospective season 3. Did you write season 2? Again, this is purely my curiosity. Did you write season 2 after Rise of Lyric had already come out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Before. So was there anything from that game? I think Sonic says like makes a bounce pad joke in one of the episodes. Like, was there ever any discussion of making beyond that references to some of like the more infamous parts of the game, or like perhaps having characters like Cliff or Lyric appear?
It might have been talked about, but also the reception was not great, and I think reminding people of the game probably wasn't something we wanted to do too much of. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, it was like this thing where we kind of created our own universe with season 1, and the Sonic Boom game universe just had like a couple different characters that we never played around with, and we didn't need at that point. So that's just kind of where it landed.
Fair enough. I had always wondered, because they kind of like leave Rise of Lyric on a bit of a cliffhanger, which I'm sure will never ever be addressed. But who knows?
No, it'll never be addressed is the answer.
Yeah, never say never, but yeah, you're probably right. So that kind of like wraps up all the Sonic Boom related things, and we're kind of getting near the end of the list of questions, and that kind of syncs up quite nicely with the hour that we had put aside. But just while we're here, do you have any other things that you'd like, factoids or things that you'd like to share with our listeners? Tell us about some of your projects. I mean, obviously you've already mentioned the Transformers one. Some of your other things that you've done since Sonic Boom, and things that you might be doing in the future.
Sure. Things we've done since then. I mean, we wrote for Warner Brothers. We worked on Unikitty. Alan was the showrunner on a show called Sunny Day, which I also wrote for. We worked on this great Lego series called Lego Monkey Kid, which is available on Amazon Kids. And it's the animation on that show is like top notch. It's the same animation team who did the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's a show that's just so under the radar, and when people see it, it's the coolest looking animated series that like is out there right now, and people don't even know it exists. So check out Amazon Kids and look for Lego Monkey Kid. Alan and I each wrote an episode of that. What else, Alan? Anything else you want to plug?
Chill away.
Not really. I can plug Greg's podcast.
Yeah, sure.
Which actually I shouldn't, because you guys are changing the name.
We're gonna change the name shortly.
So forget it. No, we not really. Greg and I, we spent a lot of years developing stuff too after Sonic. Like Sonic Boom opened a lot of doors for us as like guys who could take existing IP and make it silly, stupid, weird. And so we got a lot of gigs developing projects that ultimately didn't go forward. And so that's also like, I don't know. It's cool to have that reputation, but also I kind of want to tell people like we can come with original stuff too. We don't have to just take IP that you got no plans for and turn it weird. We can just bring you something weird.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. You're the complete package then, I suppose.
I like to think so.
I remember we were at like an executive's office, and she was just like, "Oh, what did I get yesterday? I got something really stupid yesterday. This is perfect for you guys." We're like, "Come on."
But then we had a great time developing that.
Yeah, then we spent like a year developing that really stupid idea.
Yeah.
Cool. So like, just again, my own kind of curiosity, would you ever return to the Sonic franchise if you were offered? Is it a world you'd like to revisit, given the chance?
100%. I mean, I don't think we really stated it on this podcast, but Sonic the Hedgehog was an important part of our childhoods, and it's a dream to be able to work on a project like that. We've worked like I said, we've worked on Sonic, we've worked on like Transformers, we've worked for Lego. These are all just things that 9-year-old me would be shitting his pants in excitement to know that I've done this kind of stuff. So of course we'd go back to Sonic the Hedgehog. He's iconic, and arguably even bigger now that the movie franchise has taken off the way it has.
Oh yeah, that's a completely different can of worms, isn't it? That is the massive, of course. None of that was there when you guys were putting together Sonic Boom. It's become it's snowballed. Now we've got Sonic Prime coming out, which is the new Netflix series.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any involvement with that, perchance?
No involvement. I hope it's good. That's my involvement. I'll be watching and hoping it's good.
Same.
So do I. But obviously, comedically, I don't think it will. I don't think it'll measure up.
Nah.
Yeah,
how
right.
could it? How could it ever? All right. Well, that kind of brings us to the end of the little list of avenues that I wanted to pursue during the podcast. So thank you very much, guys, for coming on. I must say, I've actually been quite starstruck speaking to the two of you. You're kind of like
silly.
living the. You're living my dream. I fancy myself a bit of a screenwriter myself. So to hear, some inside information from guys who have made it, it's been lovely chatting with you.
Yeah,
thanks so much.
You've been spending your articles summoning me, so I hope that this conversation has lived up.
Just a little running gag, wherever Sonic appears in an article, I'll find a way to insert Sonic Boom and be like, one day I'll have Mr. Denton on the show. And so we finally realized it. So I don't know where I'm going to go after this. We've spent my one running gag. I'll have to aim higher now.
You got nothing.
Try and get Ben Schwartz on for the next one.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say nowhere to go but down, but then again, that's not true at all.
I'm kidding, of course. Couldn't go any higher.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Go for Tyson. I bet you could summon Tyson.
For sure.
It's kind of like a Beetlejuice situation. Say it 3 times and he'll pop up.
Tyson has.
Oh my God.
I don't want to say it a third time. He might just show up.
Side note, one time Greg and I went to like the Sonic fan convention, which we go to, or we did go to like every year. And we would give our autographs out for free. We would have 8x10s that we would just pay for and just hand them out for free because who cares? And Tyson Hess was on the list, and Tyson then like didn't show up, and he only came for like a 2-hour window, and like just the entire convention got in line while he was there. Every single person bought something from him, and then he left, and we're like, that was the coolest thing that I've ever seen. He just walked in, took money from everybody.
Yeah, we just sat there from open, as soon as the place opened, before they even opened, we're sitting there all day, and the slow line of people, and Tyson's like, nah. He shows up at like 2:00. There's this tight window, and everyone's just throwing money at him. So cool.
I believe he was working on the Sonic movie, which was why he like only had a short amount of time. I don't want to.
Nah. He's just too cool, man.
Wasn't he? He was involved with the redesign of Sonic, wasn't he?
He was heavily responsible for the redesign. Yeah.
And really, that's how he should have looked to begin with. I mean.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Also, side note, Greg and I pitched like a different like original idea concept once with Tyson did the art for it. Yeah. But unfortunately, at the time we were pitching it, the redesign hadn't come out yet, but the original one did. So we're like, this is Tyson. He's the guy
He's the guy who's going to save this movie.
And like everywhere we took it, they were like, "Oh, doesn't that design suck?" We're like, "No, he didn't make that design. He's making the fix one, which we promise you is really good." And it, like, we should have waited like 4 months or something for that to come out, and then we could have.
Then we could have paraded Tyson around the offices of Cartoon Network and been like, "This guy, right?" Yeah, no, he's an exceptionally talented dude, super nice guy.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
you should get Tyson.
I was gonna say, I hope he's gotten a cut, because he's probably like single-handedly responsible for snowballing this film franchise into this box office juggernaut that it's become.
Yeah,
I think
if I was Sega, I would have a throne for him at our offices.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I were Sega, I would be calling Tyson to make the next Sonic animated series, but
100%.
All right. Well, once again, thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Again, I appreciate that it's been quite early in the morning for you, but it's been great. We've got some really good stuff, covered everything on my list, which
awesome.
Is a bit of a rarity around here. So again, thank you. Are you still there, Chris?
I am. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for your time.